Let me turn on my camera so you guys can put a face to a name. So if you see this guy begging off the highway in years to come, as I always say, please give generously. But anyway, my name is John Meredith. I am your instructor. I am a Sumo Logic trainer, have been with Sumo Logic for the last 2.5 years. I have worked in various aspects of IT, including being a DBA, being an IT manager, being a programmer, being a network admin, all that fun stuff. But I still manage to, the thing I enjoy doing most is training and teaching. So I finally find myself a job as a full-time trainer and enjoying the heck out of it. So, and I've been teaching since about 1982 when I started as a U.S. Navy instructor once upon a time back when I was on active duty as a petty officer first class. So anyway, enough of that fun stuff. Let's talk about our agenda. And let's talk about basically what we're here to do. This class focuses on Kubernetes using Sumo Logic. We've made some recent advances here in the Kubernetes product and product offering. So I'm going to go over that with you. And you'll find that the lab guide, which was we just re-updated this class a couple months ago, or about a month ago. And even some of it's a little obsolete. When we get into lab 2, I'll have to add lab 2 where we install the Kubernetes app just to show you how things have rapidly changed for us. So we'll talk about Kubernetes. We'll talk about how we do things in Sumo Logic and all that fun stuff. And my only ask of you is if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. Okay, that's what it's all about. Anyway, let me stop my streaming video and let's go ahead and go to town here. So our agenda here, we're going to talk about what is Kubernetes, right? We're going to sit there and get involved and log into our training environment. We're going to log in. We're going to query, do some Kubernetes queries, see what kind of visualizations and things we have for Kubernetes, query the metadata and see that sort of thing. We're also going to focus on Sumo Logic's observability. Again, for those of you who've been with Sumo Logic for over 2 years, about 2 years ago or so, people thought of us as kind of a logs and metrics type company. And we've evolved to more of an observability and security company. Yes, we still do things with logs. We still write queries with logs. That's still, good business, but it's more focused than that. It's more about observability. And those of you with us yesterday saw a good chance to see some of the new observability tools that we have. So we're going to talk a little bit about that because obviously we want to be able to observe into our Kubernetes environment. And we'll do some labs on that. Then we're going to focus on alerts and troubleshooting. And again, have some labs on that. So the first 2 hours will be lecture and lab, with the last hour being an opportunity for you and I to get certified if you want. Now, I've already taken the certification exam. We have recently just updated the certification exam, so should do fairly well. And again, we'll try to point out any test questions as we get going. All right. A reminder, if any of your colleagues are interested in this class, and of course they didn't get a chance to attend this morning's session, we are also hosting it and doing it this afternoon or this evening. We're going to do this at 7 to 10 East Coast time. So 7 to 10 East Coast time, 4 to 7 West Coast time, just so you're aware. So what is Kubernetes, right? Well, why don't you guys tell me, what is Kubernetes? I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. So could somebody want to explain to me what Kubernetes is, please? All right, a bashful class. All right. Kubernetes is an orchestration system, all right? Actually, let me skip this slide for a second. Let's get into Kubernetes. Kubernetes is an orchestration system, and it allows you and me to, if we want to grow our environment, we can, through Kubernetes, spawn up other systems. We can manage those other systems. We can, if we want to apply updates and stuff like that, we can have it automatically upgrade all across the various systems and stuff we have. So Kubernetes is referred to as a container orchestration system. Test question. It is open source. It is open source, and it's created by the CNCF certification folks. And it's MFRL. And again, I may mispronounce that if I did. Another test question. MFRL. As it needs to, it will temporarily create and destroy as it's needed, okay? So as it spins up resources and it needs those temporarily, it will create those. And then when it doesn't need those anymore, it will destroy those. Again, another test question there you want to be aware of. And of course, it's designed, guides, your controls, your containers, your environments just like a ship's helmsman. And of course, being the Navy, I can kind of relate to that. Okay. A lot of times you'll hear Kubernetes referred to as K8, and that's because the other letters besides the K in Kubernetes, there are 8 letters, and that's how they abbreviate it. So that gives you a little idea of Kubernetes. Now, Kubernetes obviously is a big old environment, and it manages your other environments. And because of that, we at Sumo Logic want to be able to see across those environments. Okay. Now let me go back a slide here. And again, I want to talk to you about our application. So we are going to talk about Sumo Coffee. Again, many of you yesterday saw Sumo Coffee. Sumo Coffee allows you to grade it, makes a great cup of coffee here. And we have a kiosk where you can order your coffee, your pastries, whatever. And then we're going to automate that coffee service from bean to cup, right? And obviously the part that grinds the beans is a microservice. The part that dispenses the water is the microservice. The part that takes your payment is microservice, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So each of these various microservices in our Sumo Logic Coffee app do a specific task. And we want to be able to see across this application to see how things are going. And of course, it runs in a Kubernetes environment. So we want to basically tie Kubernetes here to our Sumo Logic Coffee. So just to give you a little background there as far as how things work. Now, back in the old days, which wasn't that long ago, but you typically had a user interface, some website or something like that. You had some application that was driving that, and then you had your data layer down here. And your data layer consisted of your database and various other things. These days, with microservices being so prevalent, the cloud and all that stuff, now you've got multiple database instances, multiple microservices applications running, multiple user interfaces. So when I connect, for example, to the cloud and I access and through some web environment or whatever, I don't know where I'm going to get this stuff processed. Maybe it's in Virginia, maybe it's in Hong Kong, maybe it's, I don't know. I don't really care, quite frankly. All I know is I want the system to work. And the good news is it needs additional resources, it access those additional resources. And if it doesn't need those resources anymore, Kubernetes will take care of that and delete those resources. So again, this is sort of the microservices architecture that we see, and it's very prevalent in today's world. Now, as we look into the Kubernetes structure here a little bit, we have something here called the cluster. Cluster is our entire environment. And in that cluster, we have a control plane. You will always have one and only one control plane. That control plane manages these worker nodes. So you've got various worker nodes. You'll have at least one worker node, maybe more than one worker node. And inside these worker nodes, you're going to have various containers and various pods. So the pods manage the containers, and the containers basically are microservices. Now, the control plane manages these worker nodes. That's its job. So as I start breaking this down, again, a cluster is a group of machines that distribute our work, provide our fault tolerance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, within Kubernetes, Kubernetes manages this cluster, these resources and things that we need, okay? So Kubernetes clusters have to have at least one node, okay? One of those nodes is a control plane node, and I'm at least to have one working node. Otherwise, there's no sense in having a cluster, okay? My nodes, as I said before, are typically my single machines that I have in here. And again, because of Kubernetes, if I need to expand another node, I can certainly do that. My worker nodes run my software, crunch my numbers, store my data, do whatever the heck they've got to do. Think of them as a system. Think of them as an environment. Then inside those systems here, inside those nodes, I have pods. And these are the single unit, smallest unit that Kubernetes can orchestrate. Within those pods, I also have other things, containers. But as far as Kubernetes is concerned, Kubernetes can manage the pods. Okay, the containers, which is the last thing, those are each represent a microservice. So in your application, like I said, in our coffee app, right, we want to be able to grind the beans, that's a service. Take the payment, that's a service. Dispense the water, that's a service. Say hi to the customer, that's a service. All of these various things are containers. And these containers are, of course, encapsulated in pods, which are basically my applications, okay? So that's basically how things work. Now, again, In your Kubernetes environment, we have various data, right? Who the customer was, what did they purchase, all that fun stuff. We also have various metadata, and metadata is not a Sumo logic term, it's an industry term. It's information about your data, right? So these might be things like my field names, right? Like who the cashier was, who the bartista was, who the customer was, right? How many, what kind of coffee did they order? What basically did they order? Did they order pastries? If we're running a special promotion on something, are we seeing some feedback from that? So the metadata represents the fields and the values that we typically see. So Sumo Logic adds metadata enrichment to your Kubernetes environment. When you stand up a Kubernetes environment, we will add a bunch of metadata tags that you can use. Things like your namespace, things like your structure, things like your business units and stuff like that. Maybe you're in dev and prod and QA, whatever your systems are called. So we can add metadata tags for that. And that allows us to search by those metadata tags. So when we write a query, a log query or whatever, we can say, pod equals whatever. And so we can find information about that specific pod or about that specific customer or about that specific whatever. So metadata is going to allow us to be able to query, sort, and analyze our data. Okay. All right. Kubernetes architecture. When you think about Kubernetes architecture, of course, there's going to be some physical architecture, physical systems, physical machines. There's also going to be some virtual machines. So when we think in terms of a cluster, we can think about maybe an entire server room. So if you're trying to relate the concept of a cluster, think of an entire server room. Think of your node as a rack of machines. Think of your pods as a computer in that rack, and then think of your containers, like I said, as those microservices, those programs running on your computer. Right? The other thing is there's abstract partitions we can do. So for example, maybe when we look at our Bean service and our various other services, we may want to break this down by a couple of different ways. We may want to break it down by its physical structure, right? Is it in production? Is it in development? But maybe we also want to talk about the cafe side of this or the customer side of this. So the point is that you and I can create abstract partitions to break this down. In fact, by default, out of the box, we typically break things down by services, by deployments, and by namespaces. And you'll see this. There's a couple different ways that you can view things because we want to make it easy for you to see the things that you need to see in Kubernetes by the way you need to see them. Okay. Now, as far as ingesting data into Sumo Logic, we use Helm chart. We use Helm. Okay. And so by default, hopefully you are running Helm in your Kubernetes environment. And we are going to simply take advantage of that Helm. And we are going to just configure it and add something to your Helm that adds Sumo Logic to it. That's all you really have to do. So you've installed Kubernetes, you've set it up, all that stuff. You've set up Helm, whether you've done it from the command line or you've done it from, through a various interface. What we're going to do is we're simply going to add something to your Helm environment to make it available to Sumo Logic. Now, the other thing we're in the process of doing is that we've got this great big open telemetry collector that we've recently created. And we are in the process of converting from Helm to open telemetry. So, and we'll obviously support both for a long time, but ultimately our open telemetry collector will allow us to also get a hold of that Kubernetes information just using this one open telemetry collector. You'll find that when you use Helm, it uses components like FluentD and FluentBit and Falco Plus and stuff like that to get the various logs and various events and stuff like that it needs. The logs, the metrics, the security, and all that fun stuff goes through various components inside Helm. When we use OpenTelemetry, it all comes in directly into Sumo Logic. So there's no other components or anything else that we need. All right. So let's take a look here at our environment. Let's go ahead and log into our Sumo Logic environment. I'm going to come back to this slide in a second. But what I want you to do is I'd like you all to fire up a Google Chrome or Firefox browser. And what I'd like you to do, let me go ahead and copy this. and paste it, the chat box, hopefully for everyone here. Hopefully you can all see that, and hopefully you can copy and paste it. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to fire up Google Chrome or Firefox and type in the URL service.sumologic.com. That's service.sumologic.com. And then the next thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pick a 3-digit number. Any 3-digit number from 001 to 999. I don't care which number you want. For those of you maybe from the UK who's always wanted to be 007, here is your great opportunity to be 007. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take that 3-digit number. We're going to add it to our Training Plus Analyst account. So it's going to be Training Plus Analyst with the 3-digit number at sumologic.com. And that's going to be your email. So let me go ahead and log out here. And again, I've gone to service.sumologic.com. And here I'm going to log in as, and by the way, I'd like you to type in what number you want to take into the chat box, if you don't mind. That way I know not too many people have taken the same number. Not a big deal if a couple folks have the same number, but it could be kind of ugly if we all grab the same number. So I'm going to log in as Training Plus Analyst 603 at sumologic.com. Why 603, you ask? Well, that's the area code for New Hampshire. And I forgot to mention in my introduction, I'm teaching to you from my home in Bedford, New Hampshire. So that's where I am. I've asked many of you where you're taking the class from. At least I can do is tell you where I'm taking the class from. And then here, besides typing in Training Plus Analyst, that 3-digit number at sumologic.com, for the password, you're going to type in the word fireworks. Fireworks with an exclamation mark. That's the current password. Now, that password changes every month. So if you want to know what that password is, when we get into the first Monday of August is when it will change. If you want to know what that password is, one of the ways that you can find out is you can email me. And I will put my contact information in the chat box so you can have that. Additionally, in the chat box, I'm also going to put in something else. I'm going to upload a PDF directory, a PDF document. And this PDF document is our lab guide. So hopefully you're able to access and download this lab guide from the Zoom chat. If you cannot, in a minute, I will show you where that lab guide is. So again, Training Plus Analyst, 3-digit number at sumologic.com, password fireworks with an S, exclamation mark, click the button there, and Shazam, you are in. Now, I was in, this is some stuff I left from open from yesterday. Maybe the person that logged into your account left stuff open. If you want to clear these tabs up, of course, you can close them one at a time, which is not the most efficient thing in the world. But you can click on any one of these tabs, any one of them, and you'll see the 3 vertical dots. If you click on the 3 vertical dots, you'll see you have an option to close all tabs. And so I can close all those tabs and see kind of a clean, fresh start. Now, one thing about the exam is didn't mention, but I'll mention it now. The exam is open book, open notes, open instructor. I will be here while you take the exam. So if you get stuck on a question, you're welcome to ask me. But you can also have access to our slides. So in our training environment, or actually in your Sumo Logic environment, you can log into your Sumo Logic environment too to get this information, but not to do these labs. Okay. You want to click on the Home tab, click on Certification, and click on Get Certified. And here, because I'm logged in as a training account, I only see 3 squares, 3 things, okay? You'll find if you log into your company's Sumo Logic environment with your credentials, you'll see about 5 different things, okay? One of the things that's missing here is the ability to take the certification exam. We don't want you to take the certification exam as Training Plus Analyst with some crazy number. We want you to take it with your name, right? So that's one of the things that's missing here. Also, the ability to take self-paced courses is missing because, again, we want to give you credit for you taking it by your name. Training Plus Analyst at 603 or whatever has taken and passed a lot of these exams, taken a lot of self-paced courses. We don't want them to get credit for it. We want you to get credit for it. Okay. Now, while I'm here where it says recorded live training, this is where we keep recordings of our instructor-led materials. And so if you go into here, you'll see there's a section here on Kubernetes. And so this is our current course. By the way, if you want to listen to any other course, you can go into, search mastery or whatever, and you go into that course and you register for it. And you can listen to a recording of that course, download the slides, download the lab guide, and go ahead and do that stuff. Now, I digress. Back to here, back to our Kubernetes class. I'm going to register and go ahead and see this stuff.
So now, welcome to today's.
Now, I will tell you that this course, this recording is going to be updated probably from one of the classes today, because we have changed the course a little bit. But here are the latest slides. Here is the latest lab guide. So if you couldn't download the lab guide from the chat window, you should be able to go here and you should be able to access that lab guide from here. And there's a link for it. I put it in the chat box in case you want it. Any questions about this? All right. Let me close out this tab here. I'm still in my Sumo Logic environment. And let me open up my lab guide. So here's that PDF lab guide that I uploaded to Zoom, or I pointed to you where you can get it. And this is the labs that we're going to wind up doing. So lab 0 is to log in, right? Again, same instructions. You've all logged in. We are in good shape, right? Again, it says this training environment is a shared dynamic event. We want you to do the exercises in this environment because we know we've got the data. We don't want you to do these exercises in your environment because I don't know what data you have, what data you don't have. So I want you to be kind of aware of that. Now, the next thing we're going to do here in lab 1 is we're going to go ahead and start searching and visualizing and seeing what's going on with regards to our Sumo Logic environment, start running some queries and all that fun stuff. So just bear with me a second. So what I want to do is I want to grab myself a new log search. So a new blue button up here, and I can grab log search. I can grab a metric query. And again, yesterday we talked about all these lovely little functions and features and all that good stuff. So I can go in here to my log search and I can start searching for things. And for those of you familiar with Sumo Logic, you know that we use a bunch of metadata tags. So if I start typing in an underscore, and for us, an underscore is a reserved word thing. All of our reserved words have an underscore in them, okay? So I could search by data tier, I could search by collector, I could search by index, by source category, whatever. And for those of you who've been with us in training, know we prefer source category because that I can tag any source with that source category and define it as to what I want. Now I could type in source category or I can select it, either one. Now, one thing in the guide here, it talks about you want to make sure you're in advanced mode. One of the things that's changed in Sumo Logic is that there is a basic mode and there is an advanced mode. So over here in the upper right-hand corner, I can click on that and I can click on basic mode. And of course, because I'm logged in as a training account, it's trying to help me understand what basic mode is. Basic mode is designed for people who don't know how to write queries. You can go into basic mode and you can pick what data tier you want. We assume you're broken up into data tiers. You can specify what index you're interested in, and you get a pick list of all your indexes. You can filter by whatever metadata tag you want, and you can type in whatever keywords that you want. So we made it easy for you to have to not worry about the syntax. Now, for our purposes in this class, we do really want you to be in advanced mode. So if you weren't in advanced mode, if you see this, then you want to click on these 3 vertical dots on the right. You want to go into advanced mode. And here in advanced mode, we can type in something like source category equals, and then I can do something like this, star kub star. Now, what that star means, it's a global wildcard. I don't care what's before the word KUBE, and that star means I don't care what's after the word KUBE. So this is going to grab any of my Kubernetes source categories in my training environment. And when I either hit the enter key or click this start search, it's going to execute, and I'm going to see all of my logs that have this information over the last 15 minutes. And as we all know, you can go in here and change the time, relative time, or you can pick a date range, whatever you want. Okay. By default, it's 15 minutes. Another test question, but that's on a different test. That's on the search mastery test. So I've written a query that says, show me some Kubernetes data. And here, for example, I can see I've got an error, right? I got a little SQL exception error handle thing, and I got some other errors here. I got a SQL exception error on my Java connector. So again, kind of handy to see some of the stuff that's going on here. So I can sit there and see, again, information, get a sense for what's happening. By the way, in my last 15 minutes with my Kubernetes environment, I have over 305,000 messages, log messages here. There are 305,000 log messages over the last 15 minutes. And if I made this 60 minutes, I'm sure it's probably going to be close to 1 million, okay? So the point is I can see how many messages I have. And if you're familiar with some of our other tools, you can always click on log reduce, and it will automatically combine the like messages together. But let me not get too far ahead of myself. So again, we've created this little query here. We see we got lots of results. We can add a tag here, namespace equals coffee bar. So let me go back in here and hang on a second. Just type in name space equals coffee bar. Now, again, we got lots of different applications running in Kubernetes, but one of the applications, the only application I really care about, is the coffee bar app. So I'm going to sit there and specify the namespace equals coffee bar with a star at the end. I don't care what's after the coffee, the word bar, but I'm going to then see basically what's going on. And I'm not getting any results here. Hang on a second. Let me check one thing. Okay, I didn't think so. Okay, good. Let's do this. Let's check. Hold on. Did I misspell name? Did I misspell namespace? Hang on. Oh, the coffee bar. Thank you. Sometimes I just can't read. The underscore coffee underscore bar star. There we go. All else fails, try to read it. Okay. What am I missing here? Hyphen.
I believe those are dashes.
Those are hyphen.
Yeah.
You're right. Okay. Don't try this at home, folks. All right. Finally get the results. Okay, so there we go. And again, it helps to know what the different namespaces are and all that stuff. And in a minute, I'm going to show you where you can find that. In fact, let me comment out this line. If you want to comment something out, you can do that. Down here in the lower left-hand corner is my field browser. And here in my field browser, I can see various fields. So here, if I click on my namespace, I can see my various namespaces. And there I can see that the coffee bar, that's the namespace I want. In fact, if I wanted to, I can simply just click on that and it will add that statement in there and get me the same results. So you can use these field browsers, and if you wanted to go to a specific deployment, you can see what deployment you wanted, and again, click on that and it will filter it down. So just wanted to mention that and try to recover here nicely. Okay. By the way, let me also replace this with a star. One other question comes in, do I need double quotes? You notice this thing starts with a double quote. I don't need double quotes unless I have a space in here. So in my double quotes, if I got a space somewhere, then I do need double quotes, just like database query type stuff, okay? Okay, I'm sorry, because there's a where clause here, I do need double quotes. Sorry about that. I do need double quotes. There's a where clause, so apologize for that. If I use this namespace up here, I wouldn't need double quotes. All right. Why am I getting? I know why. And I've got to change this to matches. Sorry, guys. There we go. Equals is obviously going to look for a literal string. This is a literal string. Matches means I'm going to look for anything that starts with the coffee bar with a wildcard. So apologize for that. Got a little ahead of myself. And so again, I'm getting some results here. Now, the next thing I want to do here is maybe I only want to see errors, right? I'm seeing a lot of messages here. Down, by the way, to 1,437 messages. If I want to, I can also add the word error here and see where maybe I only have errors. So I can, in fact, actually, let me go back to the exercise here, if you don't mind. Uncomment this out. Just want to get too wrapped up in specifics here. Make sure this runs. Add the word error. And I believe they have the word error in quotes because I'm looking for that literal string. And so now it's going to pull out any messages that have the word error in them. So now I'm down to about 85 messages. So you and I can see quickly here how we can get a hold of the errors. Okay.
You have to put the source category in parentheses.
No. In fact, it did that for me automatically when I was doing those little
Okay.
changes. So
Now, when I tried doing the source code equals cube, I'm getting a 520 error.
you're getting a 520 error. Now, are you doing this on our training environment?
Yeah.
Okay, do me a favor. Take this, put it in the chat box, paste it in and see if it runs for you.
Okay.
The other thing is, what browser are you using? Using Chrome or Firefox or something?
Chrome. I think it was Chrome, right? Yeah, Chrome.
Okay. If you take that code that I pasted, put in the chat box, and try to copy and paste that in, let me know if it runs.
Okay. Oh. That won't let me copy and paste. Let me just type it in.
Okay, sorry. Let me just check that chat box too, to make sure you guys all have access to it. Yep, you all should have access to it.
Now I get it. That's weird.
Okay, so there's something wrong with the query you typed, so that'd be. So now what we want to do is we add a couple of things here. So now to add a new line to my query, I can hold down and do a Shift Enter on a Mac keyboard or an Alt Enter on a Windows keyboard. So that does a carriage turn line feed and takes you to the next line. And you could, we could take this lovely code right here and type it in ourselves. Or I can right click and swipe over it, right click and copy it and paste it in here. Now, let's break this code down. What we have is a pipe. A pipe is used to connect our commands together. So here's a command. Then I want to bring another command. I want to create time slices of 1 minute. Time slice 1 minute means that I want to break things down into 1 minute increments. And then I want to count the number of messages by each time slice. Now you notice here I have the word time slice. Here I have underscore time slice. Well, time slice is a command. It's an operator. It's going to create my time slices. Think of a teacher in a classroom counting my students, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, count the heads of my students, right? And then the results of that count are stored as underscore count. The result of my time slice operator is underscore time slice. So that's why I see that. Now, when I run this and I execute this by either hitting the enter key on my keyboard or click on this button, this now has created an aggregates command. And in this aggregates command, I now see here are my different time slices. They are not in any order, but then I see the count of the messages in each time slice. Okay. And if I want to sort this or order this by, I can add a new line, type in a pipe, say either order by or sort by. And in my case, I want to order it or sort it by time slice. And if I don't specify the order, it will put it in descending order. If I want it to be an ascending order, I just simply type in ASC. Now, to help you and I and others out, to understand these commands and all that good stuff, I could open up a new tab and I can go to our product documentation. That URL is help.simologic.com. And here under help.simologic.com, I've got all kinds of different sections here, all kinds of different things that I can see, right? Here in this third chapter, my search chapter, if I click on these 3 dots, you'll see I've got something here called search cheat sheets. And if I click on search cheat sheets, I say I've got 4 little types of cheat sheets underneath it. If I click on my log operators cheat sheet, this gives me all of my various operators, my aggregation operators, my parsing operators, all kinds of different operators that you and I can use. And so I'm going to take this URL, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it into my chat box. Okay. There it is. Also, we have a PDF version that you can click on, and you can print that out if you want to. So for those of you not familiar with writing queries and the operators and stuff that we use, this is probably a helpful resource for you. Okay. So now when we added those commands in there, now we're getting the desired results. And I actually just put them in order here. So just bear with me a second. I'm having a hard time turning the page here. Come on, I'll take that too. Well, good. Can't seem to turn the page. There. We'll go that route. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. There we go. Okay. Turn the page. So we basically get these results. And then, as I said, I've added an operator here that lets me sort them. Okay. And I would recommend that you sort them. So let me go back here to my query. So I've sorted them. I put them in ascending order. Now, if I want to create a bar chart, now I can see how many messages, how many error messages I have over time. Okay. Or I can create a pie chart or whatever. You can only create aggregates in the aggregates tab and create these visualizations in the aggregates tab. Here, by the way, is still my raw messages. So those are my messages. I can still look at those and read those. Here is my aggregates. And again, I can display numeric data or some sort of visualization. Okay. And that pretty much takes care of lab number 1, chance to play around. Okay. Now in lab number 2, they want us to install the Kubernetes app. But as I mentioned before, the Kubernetes app is actually already installed for us. So let's talk about this. In Sumo Logic, when I go into Sumo Logic and I go into my app catalog and I search for my Kubernetes app, just right there, Kubernetes observability, it's already here and I can explore my dashboards. So if it's already installed, this is what you're going to see. And by the way, let me also do this. Let me go up here to all categories. let me search for Kubernetes, KUB. And you'll notice here's my Kubernetes, and I also have a Kubernetes control plane. So my Kubernetes apps gives me information about my worker nodes and what's going on. My Kubernetes control plane lets me see what the control plane is doing. So these are various different apps. And I've got Kubernetes for Azure and Kubernetes for Google as well. But we're going to focus on AWS. We're going to focus on this Kubernetes app. As I said, when I click on it, it says, hey, you can explore these dashboards. And I'll do that in just a minute and show you. But down here, it says I can open these dashboards in my library. There should be another option here. Hold on. To also add another node. So just bear with me a minute. See where there we go. Nope. Okay. There was, when I did this a few minutes ago, the ability to create another cluster node. Okay. So this is how we install apps. This is how we do things, but the app is already installed here. And so what I saw previously, just a few minutes ago before class, was when I pulled down on this, I saw the ability to add another cluster, another thing. And so if you do that, it kind of walks you through the process that you and I would see here in lab 2, where it's going to ask us to tie into the data, and then it would in fact create this. Okay. But because we already have Kubernetes installed, and so if I go in here, here is the Kubernetes app, and I can look at the Kubernetes app here. I can look by all kinds of various things. So let me start here with a Kubernetes node overview. If I click on that, it gives me an overview of my Kubernetes node. So here I can see I have 142 or 102 nodes. Here's my average CPU utilization, makes me feel good, 19%. That's well in the green. Memory, all of that fun stuff. Here I can see my pods. By the way, you can also set this up so that you can actually click in here and have it take you to another dashboard, another thing, stuff like that. But this gives me kind of a nice overview here of my Kubernetes nodes. And I can look at other aspects of my Kubernetes cluster to see the big picture here of what's happening. You know, it's this Kubernetes cluster by default here. Gives a lot of good gauges up here and a couple of nodes. And this is typically the first dashboard you would look at. Now, I can go up here and I can pick a particular cluster if I want. So as I add more clusters, I'll see those clusters here, and I can then select the clusters and stuff that I want. Or if I want to see all of them, I simply type in a star, and that shows me all of my clusters. Okay. Now, additionally, besides all that, we also have the ability in here to look through our Explorer. So I'll get to that in just a second. So here in lab 3, they want me to view my pre-built dashboards. Okay. So they want me to go into, it's a personal folder. We're going to go into the actually shared folder, because this is how our environment's changed. And we want to open up the Kubernetes folder, and we want to go into that cluster overview, which is where I'm at. So again, if you weren't able to keep up with me, let me take a moment. Again, in the shared library folder, here in Kubernetes, you want to find the Kubernetes cluster overview, and you want to click on that. In fact, I'm going to close all the other tabs except for this one, just to keep things clean. And so here, I can see my CPU usage, my memory usage, my disk space, all that good stuff, and everything's looking really good here, right? I do have 9 unscheduled pods for some strange reason. And then I can focus, I can talk about those pods in just a little bit. But back to my lab. One of the things it wants me to do is it wants me to focus on the coffee bar. So here in my cluster, I'm going to select the coffee bar training environment. And it asks how many nodes are not running. There's some questions in here, right? How many nodes aren't running? How many pods aren't running? What percentage of cluster disk space has been used? Well, disk space usage is 7. There's no down nodes. There's no down pods. Everything's running great. Okay. And as I said, if I, If I had an issue with a pod that failed, I could click in here and have it take me to more investigation about those particular pods. I can see how much memory each of these pods is using. So pretty powerful stuff right there off the get-go. And that's lab 3. Any questions about that? All right. Moving on to lab 4. Here, we want to be able to navigate our Kubernetes cluster with our Explorer. So let me go back here. In Sumo Logic, under New, we've got something here called Explore. Explore tab. And if you click on New and Explore, you'll see over here you've got a whole bunch of different things that maybe show up. For example, we have an AWS observability app, and if you install it, you'll see a bunch of AWS observability apps that you can run. We've also got a host and process view. We've also got real user monitoring, but we have 4 Kubernetes views that we can use. And we can view by Kubernetes service view, Kubernetes deployment view, namespace view, and node view. Node view is, of course, my physical node view. So here I can see my clusters. In my clusters, I can see by my systems, my nodes. When my nodes, I can see by my pods. I can see by my containers. Now, what you're seeing here is the overall physical structure of my dashboards, or I'm sorry, Kubernetes environment. Also over here, I might have more than one type of dashboard that I can look at. So when I'm looking at a specific node, I can look Kubernetes load, Google Kubernetes nodes, node overview, different dashboards here that I can see. Now, sometimes you may very well see no data to display. And there's a reason for that. This node may not be online. So if you have a situation, and this is a test question, where you don't see data, there are 3 things that you can do. 1, you can increase the time. And maybe that will get you some data. 2, you can change to a different node or a different pod. Because not all of these nodes are active. They're only active when they're needed to be active. That's what Kubernetes does. So again, I might not see certain things. Certain things may not be active. Certain things may be active. So you can change your node, you can change your pod, you can change your time. And I'm trying to think what the third thing is off the top of my head. Makes a great test question though. Hang on a second. Let me. Tell you what, let me get back to my slides for a second before we get in that lab. Okay. So some of the stuff we've already done, let's talk about it real quick. So in lab 1, we did a quick search using metadata, looking for errors, visualizing our errors over time, right? Now, as far as observability with Kubernetes goes, right, we have the 3 pillars of observability that most of you learned yesterday. Those are our logs, which typically tell us why some things are the way they are. We have our metrics, which typically tell us what is going on. And we have our traces, which allows us to see the transactions and the things that occur across our transactions. By the way, this slide right here becomes a test question. So for those of you who didn't download the slides or don't want to download the slides, I'd take a screen capture of this right now, because you'll see this with regards to questions about logs, metrics, and traces. Okay. As far as our incident remediation process goes, we can monitor by creating alerts and looking at dashboards. We can diagnose a little quicker by going into our Explorer that you're seeing right now. And in that Explorer, I can see, green is good, yellow is questionable, red is bad. I can look at my metrics, I can look at my traces and all that fun stuff. And for those of you with us yesterday, we talked about this thing called the Root Cause Explorer, where I can troubleshoot things using that Root Cause Explorer and my log search to determine what the root cause is. And that to us is observability. Some companies think observability is nothing more than just monitoring and looking at dashboards. For us, this whole thing is observability. So as far as Sumo Logic Coffee and Kubernetes goes, right, our coffee app runs on a Kubernetes cluster, and we want to be able to see it basically using this Kubernetes application. So the Kubernetes app can manage and monitor multiple clusters. Once it's installed, you don't have to install it again. You can add additional clusters if you want to, but once it's installed, it's installed. Obviously, it provides centralized metadata enrichment, so we can add additional metadata tags and values and all that fun stuff. Again, we can break things down by namespace, by deployment, by service views, as well as by node views. My node views gives me my physical structure. This is dynamic. As my data changes, I will see this data in my Kubernetes app. I will also see it in my Explore app. So we have the Cluster Explore dashboard right here. Again, gives me kind of a honeycomb of all of my information here, an overview of my CPU and memory. Again, color-coded, green is good, yellow is questionable, red is bad. I've also got a nodes dashboard in my app here where I can see the health and performance of all my nodes. Again, I just remind you, in all fairness, you might see test questions about what can I use the Cluster Explorer dashboard for? What can I use the node dashboard for? Sees the health and performance of all my nodes, et cetera, et cetera. My security overview dashboard shows me about any alerts or issues we've had with regards to security here. Somebody's maybe trying to access in that shouldn't be able to access in, things like that. So I have a security overview dashboard here. Now, besides the Kubernetes app itself, we also have the Kubernetes control plane app. And this lets me see what the control plane nodes are doing, right? And so you can install the Kubernetes control plane app if you want to. And we have a bunch of other Kubernetes apps. But typically, once you install the Kubernetes app like we have, it's available here. You can add additional clusters, but you don't have to install it again. By the way, to install this Kubernetes app and install Kubernetes with our cluster, all you really have to do is go out to your Kubernetes cluster environment, and using the Helm update command, all you're going to do is tell it to make it available to Kubernetes, to Sumo Logic. And so that's basically all you have to do to enable that. And then we will see data coming into our Explorer, and we'll see our dashboards and all that fun stuff. Now, in the Explorer, as I mentioned, we have a node view, gives me my cluster hierarchy. We also have a deployment view. So let me go back here, excuse me, go back here, and let me go into my Explorer, and let's go into my deployment view. So here in my deployment view, I see my clusters, and I can see where they are deployed as far as what environment, right? Are they in my prod, dev, QA? Where are they as far as my deployment? Let's take Sumo Logic here. Let's take Coffee Bar here. It doesn't really show the different like prod, dev environments, but I can see where they're deployed. So this provides me my deployment to monitor performance. I also have a service view, so I can go up here and view it by service. And so again, here's my clusters, and then I can start breaking it down by my various services. So the various services here that are running. So maybe I've got an issue with my state metrics. I could click on this service and immediately go see what's going on. And then the final and fourth one here is my namespace view. My namespace view lets me organize things by namespace and lets me see things by my namespace. Now you can set up your namespaces to define whatever it is that you're interested in. You can structure your namespaces so that it makes logical sense for you. Namespaces is something arbitrary that you and I and whatever can create to organize things another way. So by projects or by namespace. So maybe you want to do it by project or whatever. So those are the various views that you have. And again, more detail. My node view gives me a physical structure. My deployment view, right, lets me see my deployments. Again, shows me my pods running and stuff. Basically, I'm looking by deployment. Service view breaks it down by service. And then my namespace view, again, lets me see things broken down by an arbitrary namespace. All right. Any questions about that? So when we're looking at our Kubernetes environments, there's lots of different ways that you and I can see things. Now, that being said, let's take a moment here and let's go into lab number 4. But before we go into lab number 4, I propose that we take a 5-minute break. So what do you say we take a 5-minute break? And when this timer gets down to 0, I'd like you all back. So please take a break, and I'll see you in about 4 minutes and 53 seconds. Have a good break. I hope you've all had a good break. Sorry about that. I spent a few minutes extra down by the coffee maker, so my apologies. All right, so when we last left off, we were talking about, and actually let me enable some mics here because I see a couple of you need your mics enabled. And Melissa, I appreciate you joining me. So when we last left off, we were talking about how you and I can go into the Explorer tab and how we can see what's happening with the Explorer. So that takes us to lab number 4. And here in lab number 4, we're going to navigate our Kubernetes cluster here by using our Explorer. So again, we went to new, we went to Explore, and then we get to pick what view we want, whether it's Kubernetes node view or namespace view or deployment view or services view. And so then we could start breaking things down if we want to. So let's go ahead and take a peek at that. So again, Kubernetes node view. Again, the node view is my physical view. Here are all of my clusters. And so if we go into the Coffee Bar app, underneath my clusters, I have my various nodes, different IP addresses based on my nodes. Open up a particular node, I can see all the different pods that are there. And then you may recall under my pods, I have my various containers. So we can look across all of our nodes. And for example, that node obviously hasn't been running, so there's no data there. And I mentioned to you before, if your node's not running, change the time, select a different node, that sort of thing. Let's see if I can find which is the active node here real quick and get some data. All right. Now, the point this being is that we can go into the various aspects. Let me go into this travel logic one here for a second. So again, here I can see my cluster. Here again, I can see whichever node is working. I can see the data for that node, and I'm going to have the same problem here, I suspect, trying to find the active node. So bear with me a second. All right. Okay. Kevin's got a question here on the thing, dashboards equals Kubernetes dash nodes. I'm not sure, Kevin, what you're
Is your dashboard incorrect? Your dashboard says GKE node logs to the.
Oh, I see. I got you. You're right. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Good catch.
No
Good
problem. I
catch.
was just
Yeah,
kind of
we
like,
should put that. No.
what's the difference in the dashboards?
Right. Okay. So what happens here is we're looking at this particular node. We could be looking at this particular node by Kubernetes, by Google Kubernetes, or different types of dashboards here to provide that information. So again, depends on, remember, Kubernetes is an open standard, right? The Kubernetes we're using is AWS on Kubernetes, but there is also an Azure version. There's also a Google version. And so these different dashboards here, these different legacy logs and stuff like that, lets us see things from other systems, other perspectives. So thank you. Good catch. I apologize for missing that myself. Now, again, I can see here my Kubernetes node. Here's my node information. Great. Then I can go into my node information if I want to, and I can go in here to Falco, for example, which deals with my security. And I can see information about my security with regards to that node. And then I can break down into my container and see the specific information about my specific container here and see basically what I'm seeing. So let me go back up and let me salvage this lab here, since I did a less than stellar job. Come on. There we go. So let me go back here to my Coffee Bar app. Let me go back into my node, make sure I'm looking at the right logs. Thank you for that. And as I said, I can see the node and the performance of my node here. And then I could go inside of my node and I could focus on various aspects like my Coffee Bar calculator which is going to calculate my costs and things like that. And then I can look at the calculator service or the state metrics, and again, get a sense for how those things are going. So this allows you and I to see across our Kubernetes environment. But again, the node view specifically lets us see the physical structure. Any questions with regards to that? Okay. So back to my lab here. We can go in here and look at the pods, look at the containers, all that fun stuff. All right. Again, select one of the containers that you want. Great. Now, if you see a situation with no data, as I mentioned before, right? And this is a test question, you might want to increase the time. So one of the things that you can do to see if you get data is to increase the time. The other thing is to, if you need to, is to change the different nodes or different clusters or different whatevers. And then the third thing that I missed, shame on me, because you just brought it out to my attention, is to change the dashboards, okay? So if you're not seeing data, check the dashboards, check the nodes, check the time. Those should get you going there. And that's what we're trying to mention to you on page 15, okay? Now, in here, what they want me to do is they want me to go ahead and I'm in the Coffee Bar app. Let me go to the Coffee Bar app. Sorry. So there we go, Coffee Bar app. And then here, hang on. Dashboard Kubernetes container. Okay. Yeah, I didn't think the container would be here. The container should be. Let me go in here and find a container. Okay. Let's grab DNS. Find a container, and then here is where I can see a Kubernetes container dashboard. And so here in lab number 4, when you're in a container and you walk your way down to that container, then they want you to see the Kubernetes container. And again, this will give you information about your container as far as CPU usage, memory usage. If we have anybody in a crashback loop, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit, there's a couple of common things that occur in a Kubernetes environment. Crashback loops are one, memory resource issues are others and stuff. So we'll talk about those. We'll slide on that. But again, you can see information about this specific container to see how it's been behaving and all of that sort of thing. So that's what we're trying to show you here in lab number 4. Any questions so far? All right, let's get back to our slides. And let's go ahead and pick it up here a little bit. So again, in the labs, we didn't install the Kubernetes app because the app's already installed for us. And once the app is installed, you can install another cluster, but we don't have to worry about installing the app. Then we viewed our pre-built dashboards, then we navigated our cluster using the Explorer. So those are the things that we did. All right. Now, as far as alerts and troubleshooting, right? So you and I can create alerts. We can see basically what's going on. Charlie, I see your question. Give me a second here and I'll address it. So good question. Let me address your question this way, and I might do it a little out of order. Okay. So Charlie asked, is there a view for tracing calls from pod to pod? Good question. So let me stop my slides here for a second if I can. And I want to introduce you to something called the service maps. So here in Sumo Logic, we've got something called the service maps. And the service maps, if I turn off the help here, show us in our various applications, they can show us the various activity going from my various transactions. So here is where I can see activity going from node to node, if you will, as far as what's happening. And if I want to, I can click on this. And of course, I can open it up in my logs or my spaces or my Explorer or whatever. I can even see the various traces and the various transactions that are being used for this particular activity. So here in my coffee machine, I can see the various activity and stuff that's going on. So for those of you with me yesterday, we talked about our application observability. We went into this in a bit more detail, but we can go in here and we can see and tie back to log messages of where maybe we've got a problem. But here's where we can see a whole transaction that's going across. So when somebody orders some coffee and they put their order in and it gets processed and they pay and it gets done and all that stuff gets handed back, that's this entire span up here. And then I can see how it's broken down on how much time was taken for how long it took to grind the beans and how long it took to dispense the water and how long it took to, I can see how long it took by the width of this. And then I can also see if there are any errors here. And then if I need to, I can look up the specific errors here to see exactly what might have happened. So grab the wrong error there. So, but yes, you can see that. So Charlie, hopefully that gives you an idea of answers your question there, sir. Okay. Thank you for asking. All right. So back to this, we're going to talk about alerts and troubleshooting, and we're going to focus on that. So, again, you want to know, some basic things about your cluster, right? How many worker nodes are considered to be unhealthy, right? What disk CPU resources are being used? Are they close to maximum? Things like that. Have any of your pods crashed? Do I have any autoscaler issues? And are my requests getting routed as I expect them to? So here's a couple of common things, and this makes a great test question. So we can take a screen capture of it if you want. You got crash loops. Crash loops are issues where your replication services keeps restarting pods. So it restarts a pod, and then there's an issue with that pod, and then it tries to restart that pod because it thinks it needs to start that pod. And then you also have a situation where nodes are not ready. Insufficient resources are allocated to the node, so the node never comes up. It never fully prepares itself. It doesn't have enough CPU resource, whatever. Memory limits exceeded, right? Container requests too much memory, and then it subsequently gets destroyed and restarted. So if your memory limits are exceeded, your container request can't handle it. Again, you'll see issues where you'll see memory limits being exceeded. So these are three of the more common alerts that you and I will see. And again, we can monitor our dashboard, look at our dashboard, look at our Explorer to see what's going on. Or we can also generate alerts, which we'll talk about just a little bit. And then, of course, once we get that information, we can diagnose that to see what's going on. We can look at our Explorer dashboards. We can dig into that pod or dig into that cluster to see what's happening. And then, of course, we'll figure out what's wrong and we'll fix it. We'll resolve it. We'll do what we need to do to take care of it. Okay. So when we monitor and triage our alerts, right, does every alert or warning need your immediate attention? These are questions you have to ask yourself. Why? Because, some things don't require your immediate attention. Some things certainly do, right? The whole reason behind Kubernetes is if there's an issue, Kubernetes will try to resolve and take resources and fix and expand and do what it needs to do. And so, Kubernetes by itself tries to be sort of self-healing, if you will, and tries to restart and do things that it needs. So a lot of times Kubernetes is just trying to take care of itself. And when that happens, you may see certain alerts or warnings. Are they really a problem, right? So what kind of alerts should you pay attention to? Which were the priorities here, right? Think about what, again, how many of you are running Kubernetes environments? Show of hands, please, in the participants window. Okay. For those of you who are running Kubernetes environments, how do you prioritize and triage? What criteria do you use as far as figuring out what to alert, what to focus on? Feel free to open up your mic. Feel free to let us know. Don't be bashful. Or you can type it in the chat box, whatever you'd like. Now, it's also possible that some of you are running Kubernetes and you haven't really either A, thought about this, or B, aren't, don't really have something figured out. And so my suggestion to you is, now that you see the capabilities here of Sumo Logic and how we can help you see what's going on with your Kubernetes environment, perhaps now it's time to have those conversations.
Is there a way you can determine, I didn't realize you had that whole mapping going on, which is a great tool. In the security respect, how, is there something that's already built in that we can determine what's running between each node that shouldn't be running between each node, that could be potentially malicious, or or say, this person or this process shouldn't be running, but it is running on this node, or this is a known malicious actor and it shouldn't be obviously running anywhere, let alone on any nodes. But is there like a built-in security feature for that?
Well, there is in a certain way. So forgive me for the commercial, because I'm going to give you a commercial here. And that is here in Sumo Logic, if you'll just bear with me a moment. What I want to do is scroll up here. Maybe I'll scroll up here. Okay. Here on my navigation page, we have this whole Cloud SIEM product. Okay. And that Cloud SIEM product lets us ingest logs and metrics and other things from various systems, including your Kubernetes environments. So we could go into this Cloud SIEM and we can get insights which are based on signals, which are based on problems, and we can investigate it that way. So that's one whole long conversation, and we could show you that. But another thing more to the point is that if I go into my Explorer, and if I find some security stuff, I'm just going to use a Prado 1 here for a second, if you don't mind. Actually, let me do this by, service view. Trying to find a good example here of security. We go back here. Tell you what, we'll improvise here. So if I go into a specific dashboard, a specific service that deals with security and all that stuff, I can go in, and typically somewhere in here, I've got a dashboard that shows me my log information. And I can go open this up in my log query or my metric query. And there I can see what's happening, and I can modify the query to see what kind of activity I'm having and that sort of thing. What I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to get specifically into my security area. So hopefully somewhere in my security area here, I can see some security area. Let's try SE demo here. Hold on. So I can sit there and see I've got some known issues, some known problems, some known whatever, and I can ultimately open up the query that makes this up. Now let's open up in metrics, and I'm trying to find one where I can open up in logs. Let's open up metrics here. Bottom line is I could go into logs, queries, whatever, and I could write and modify this query in such a way that I get that information that I need. Okay. So that was something we talked a little bit about yesterday, and how we can take all of our observability stuff and we can, basically go and find what the root cause is, whether it's a security problem, it's a failure problem, it's, whatever the situation is.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. The other thing is, and I did mention this again, and that is, Sumo Logic is known for two things right now: observability and being able to see across your applications. But the other thing is security. And part of the reason we're getting that reputation for security is this right here. And actually, let me shrink it back down a little bit. Because this tool allows us, it ingests all of the various log records. And from those log records, it looks to see where it's got rules in here that are based on the modern attack framework that allows us to see if we've had some sort of a security issue or whatever. So if the record matches the signal, or matches the rule, then it generates a signal. And then we're going to correlate these signals over a 2-week period based on their score. And that will then generate an insight. And then you and I can go into that insight and see what the insight is telling us. And so this is where your security team can come in here and play. And they can see, okay, somebody tried to do an enumeration of all my users using the SAMR protocol. And then they tried to do a password spray attack. And by the way, I can click on these and get more detail. Then they did a brute force attempt and so forth and so on. So you can see exactly what's going on. And again, it's all surrounded by this particular IP address. So this is where you can then, work to isolate this IP address, resolve it, investigate it further, so forth and so on. One other thing I want to mention to you, just as a FYI, not only do we have this, again, security information and event management system, but we also have this security orchestration and automation response tool that allows us to automate some of those actions to make it very easy. So less, humans have to be involved, or they only have to be involved where we need to be involved. So just wanted to mention that to you. Apologize for the long segue. All right. Any other questions so far, folks? All right. I believe when we last left off, we were getting ready to do our next set of labs. So let me get back to the slides here, clean things up, and go to town, right? So again, diagnosing investigation, we want to find out more information about an issue. We can typically drill down into our logs, into our metrics, into our traces to find out what's going on. So this kind of talks about your question, right? So how we fix a problem? Again, we need to look at, in the case of Kubernetes, what resources we need to deal with. We need to allocate resources to it. Maybe there's some new patch we need to install, or we need to restart the system, things like that. Of course, those are things that we can do within Kubernetes, right? So typically within resolving the issue, you as an analyst may be aware of the issue and you work with your administrator to, in fact, resolve it, okay? And again, if you need help from us, here's basically, some of the steps with regards to it. Anything we can do to try to help you, we certainly will. One of our core values is we are in it with our customers, and that is very true. Okay, so let's take us through the hands-on labs, and let's talk about troubleshooting a failed pod and basically see how this all kind of ties together. So let me create our alert. So here in lab 5, we can, you can, I can create a metric alert. Now, how do we create a metric alert? We're actually going to go in here to manage data on our navigation panel, and we're going to go into monitoring, and we're going to add a new monitor. So bear with me a moment while I go out here in my Sumo Logic environment. I'm going to go ahead and close up these tabs. I don't really need them right now. And down here under manage data, there's something here called monitoring. And here in monitoring is where you and I can create monitors. Now, we also can, when you install an application, a lot of times it will add certain monitors for your applications. For example, in our AWS app, when we install that, it adds a whole bunch of monitors for those applications and puts them in a separate folder. So I can, you can, we can, installs a whole bunch of alerts and monitors here that you and I can see and play with. So one of the things that you can do is you can import monitors in here. But what we're going to do,
where'd you get the monitors from?
You'll find them on our support site. You'll also find them when you install an app, it actually is going to install them for you. So, but you can find some of them that you can import from our support site and some of our documentation. Okay. Also, you can folders to contain and organize these things. So if you want to play your Kubernetes alerts in one folder, makes logical sense perhaps, so you don't get them confused with other things. But ultimately, whether you're in whatever folder you're in or wherever you are, you're going to create a new monitor. So you click create new monitor. And then here on your monitor, is your monitor going to deal with log information or metric information? And then is it going to be static, or are we going to use the outlier function? So in our case here, we're going to create a new monitor. We're going to use metrics. And in metric, we're going to start typing in kube pod status phase. So metric here, metric kube pod status phase. There we go. We'll select it. Okay. And that's going to get all of our kube pod status phases. And for the filter, we only want to see those where the phase has failed. So filter here, I got a bunch of drop downs, a bunch of selections here that I can use. What I'm looking for is I want to see the phase where the phase has failed. Okay. And again, it's reading all these metadata tags and metadata information here. Okay. And so we can create this operator, create this alert, and we should be able to see the data down here. And right now it looks like nothing's failed in a while. Nothing's failed in the last 3 days. Let me go back to the previous week and see if we've got any failures. Not really. Okay. All right. And then if I want to, I can focus on the coffee bar training. So let's go in back to my query here. And in my filter, I want to add cluster equals. So I focus only on the coffee bar training app. And again, I've had no failures, which is kind of a bummer. Wish I could turn off the node so you could see a failure there. All right. And then what I can do is if I do have a failure, or if I do have issues, I can specify, let me get out of there. There we go. So here's my criteria. Here's my query. And then I can say, look, if I'm missing data, I want you to alert me. So I'm missing any data for a period of 5 minutes or whatever time frame you want. Notify me. Now, not only will we notify you, but when we recover and we get the data back, we're going to notify you as well, right? It's one thing to be told I got a problem. It's another thing to tell me, hey, it's fixed, right? So probably a good thing there. I can also set in warning levels. So maybe I want to set a warning level when we are greater than one failure or whatever over a period of time. And with this switch thrown in the position it's in, it will alert me when this happens. It will also notify me when it recovers. If I want the recovery to be at a different level, maybe I want it to be 0, then it will recover. I can throw the switch and I can change these values if I want to. Okay. And then I can also set a critical level. So I can set this critical level. Maybe I want it gets to 2, right? I get 2 failures. And so you can see down here where my line is. You can see here's the green area. Here's the critical area. Here's the warning area. Here's the critical area. And so I can see where things are. So I'm defining the criteria of notification here. Then here on my advanced settings, I can say, look, I want to call this alert by the monitor name, or I can customize it. And not only can I type in text here, but I can also use various variables. So I can use various variables if I want to. And if I need to, I can also delay its evaluation for a little bit while I'm testing or something. And then the question is, how do you want to notify? So I can create a new email if I want to. I can make a connection through Datadog or through Slack or through Teams or through Jira or what all kinds of different systems, HipChat. And you'll find that there's a way for us to make connections to other systems in here. And once you make that connection to other system, you'll be able to use it here. So maybe I want to create a new email. Okay, who I want that email to go to. Going network operations center or to me or to whatever. So you and I can notify folks somehow Again, I can put a subject line in here of combination of static and dynamic text. Again, I can add other variables in there. I can type in whatever I want to in the message. And
Can something
then,
like this go to like PagerDuty or something?
yes, I could. I could certainly send it to PagerDuty. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And I'll explain how we make those connections to PagerDuty and stuff in just a little bit. Okay. So, and then I decide when I want this email to fire. Do I want it to fire when we've got a missing data alert recovery? Or do I want it to fire when we have a warning and recovery? Or do I, I define the criteria. Now, again, I might have a different notification. I may want to send something to PagerDuty for somebody. Or I may, when things are probably at a warning level, I probably want to notify a couple folks. When things are at a critical level, I want to notify a lot more folks, whether it's through email, through PagerDuty, whatever. So you define this information, you go down here, give your monitor a name, and you can put in a description. And most importantly, and this is my favorite, you can add a playbook here. And a playbook is what actions do we need to take to recover, right? So you can create a link or something to your playbook, and you can reference that link in here. And so let me just show you what this looks like here. Let's see, click to, okay. And I could put a hyperlink right there on the word here if I want to, but I'm going to save this monitor. Now, right now, until we get a condition that's problem, we're not going to see this in our alerts. So here I see it, it's running normal. I haven't had any outages. I haven't had any problems. There's no issues here. So, but when I get an alert, it will show up here in my alerts. And so anything that's critical or warning, I will be able to see in my alerts. Then here in my alerts, if I open it up, and of course I'll get my notification via, PagerDuty or whatever, however we set that up. But when I open up that alert, I can see where this alert occurred, time-wise, the spike. I can see any other associated alerts, other system alerts that are associated with this one. I can go down here and I can see any log messages I have. I can go out and immediately open this up in my logs to see this data in my log query to see maybe what's causing it. And then up here is my playbook. And if I created a playbook and clicked on that link, then the user could click on this and see the actions they need to do to resolve this. So you can incorporate playbooks into your Sumo Logic alerts fashion. And that's something that we've recently added. Okay. By the way, I can also see my monitor history here to see when this alert fired, all kinds of fun stuff. Now, let me go back here and let me log out as this particular user, and there's a reason why I'm doing it. Just humor me for a moment. Let me log in as me because I have more rights in this environment. And let me go back in and answer your question. Under managed data, under monitoring, I have a section here called connections. And here in connections is where I can make that connection to PagerDuty or to hit chat or to whatever. So I can go up here and I can click the plus sign. And if I want to, I can click on PagerDuty and I fill out the information here for PagerDuty. And here it gives me a sample payload of information that we can send to PagerDuty. And obviously, based on the APIs for PagerDuty, I could perhaps send some other values. So does that hopefully answer your question and connect the dots?
Yes, thank you.
You're very
much so.
welcome. Thank you for asking. So that's my conversation on alerts. And so you and I can create an alert. Okay. Now let's tie this whole thing together. Let's do some troubleshooting with traces, with service map. Let's see what's going on. Let's investigate an issue. Okay. So again, maybe I've got an issue with, again, your coffee app. We're having some problems, things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop stop that student guide there for a second. Oops, hold on a second. Let's go back here. Why am I? Again, having a little problem here trying to turn the page. Okay, there we go. All right. So what I want to do is I want to go in here to my service map. Now, again, my service map shows me my various applications. Whether they're Kubernetes or not, doesn't make any difference, but I can see my various applications. And if I want to, here I can filter by the specific application. So here I'm looking at my Coffee Bar app. Now, in my Coffee Bar app, I've got this cash desk, which is going to handle the credit card payments and all that good stuff, right? I also have this little cloud that's going out to for processing and various other things. I have my coffee machine, and then I've got the various machine service. Now, these are all little pods. And in my coffee machine service, I have my water service that dispenses my water, and I've got my coffee service, which grinds up my beans. Now, if I look at the circles here, the size of my circles depends on the number of requests per second that I get. That's what it does by default. And then if it's in red, that means I'm getting some sort of abnormalities. And obviously, I've got a lot of things here that have various abnormalities. They're in red. And they're in red for a very simple reason. We want to have something to show you. So what I want to do here is, this is my service map. I could take this service map and I could go into a specific service and look. Or if I didn't have this service map, I could go into traces and I could pick whatever trace information that I want. So actually, per the lab, it wants me to go in here and it wants me to grab this K8 cluster name. Play a K8 cluster name. And of course, this is going to equal, and I want my coffee bar. So this is another way, and I want to do it for any span, I believe. Let me just double check. Yeah, for any span. And so this is another way of getting this data. So here I've got this data in my service map. I could go here, click on this, and it's basically, I'm sorry, excuse me, double click on this, and it should, come on. All right, fine. Click on it here, open it up in traces, and it will basically give me the same information. So here I have the information, here I have the information, okay? And so now I'm looking at all the transactions where I've had issues. Now this happens to be the issue of the coffee bar front end. This one happens to be the issue of, again, the coffee bar front end. What I want to do here is I can click on the duration to sort the duration here if I want to. So right now I want to see which ones have the longest duration. And I can see it took, in some cases, my coffee bar 7 seconds to process things. That's the longest it took. I can also see and sort by number of errors. And by default, when you click on it once, it sorts it in descending order. Click on it again, it'll sort it in ascending order. So again, you can pick and choose as you see fit, okay? Now let me try to adhere to the instructions here a little bit, because I do tend to go off the range, okay? It says, click on the trace with the most errors and the longest duration. So here I've got 13 errors and the longest duration, so I'm gonna go ahead and click on this particular one. And when you click on this particular one, you are seeing how long of my transaction, 4.95 seconds, 60% of that was done at the coffee bar. 22% was done at the coffee machine. 13% was done here at the coffee bar front end. So I can see how much time it took. And then I see the various spans. Now these spans are the various individual elements that happened. So my trace is the entire thing. My spans are the different elements that happened here. You'll notice that some of these spans have a red line on them. That means there was an error. Now, the way I typically troubleshoot this is I want to go to the lowest line with the error. And if I want to highlight those errors, I can throw this switch. And that will then highlight the ones with errors and ghost out the ones that don't have errors. And what I want to do here is I want to go down to the last one that has the error. and I want to go ahead and click on it. And when I click on it, a sidebar menu comes out. Tells me the span ID, the trace ID, the operation, the fact it generated a 502 error, how long it took, all kinds of neat stuff. If I click on the metadata tab, I can see all the metadata we grabbed with this particular trace ID. And if I click on entity, I can start seeing some performance graphs and things like that with regards to the various parts of this. But what I want to do is I want to go back to summary, and I want to go into the logs. Okay. So if I open up, I want to go into the logs ID for this span ID. This span ID is exactly that. It is the span that made this up. So when I click on this, it's going to show me for this particular span ID, the log entries that made this up. So here I see the latest message, and here I see the earlier message. This is also sorted in descending order. So here I have a message that says, hey, I got a new order, right? Here's my new order. And then up here it says, I'm sorry, I can't fill your new order because I'm out of grains. So I now know that a 502 is reflective of, I got no grains. So we got to make the grain hopper bigger, or we've got to keep it more filled up, or have a standby grain hopper or whatever to keep the coffee business going. All right. But I can very quickly go from someplace like this very quickly to see the log message that shows me what the problem is. And that's what we're really trying to show you here, is how you can go in here, see what's going on, open those messages with the same span ID, and then identify what happened here. Okay. So you can see it either by running the traces and seeing it that way, or you can go into the service map and see it the same way. So again, I can go into here, open this up in my traces, sort by duration, find the one with the longest message, longest duration. You know what, just for fun, I'll take the next one down just to see if it's the same issue. I click in here, again, I can focus on only my error spans, which will gray out the stuff. And I want this one right there. And I open it up in my ID. And sure enough, here I've got no water. So again, I got a new order. This time I had no water to fill that order up with. So you can quickly see how we can get information about what these errors and these issues are. What questions have you?
Possibly a silly one, John. How did you so quickly see on that message which one was an error? So the spans that you just looked at, you went, this is an error one, so I'm going to click on this.
Yep,
How did you know?
Okay. You mean this panel, or?
Yeah, that's it. So you were in here and you were looking at kind
My
of.
apologies. I was going through here so fast, I forgot to point out this column. This is my number of errors.
I got you right. So
What I wanted was the longest duration and the highest number of errors.
Right. Gotcha.
Now I could, if I just fun here, let me sort this in descending order. So there's my number of errors, and then I want to find the longest duration, right? I can go this way and find, whatever.
And do the colors, I know this is on the other exam and I've actually forgotten it already, but do the colors on that graph?
The colors show me which microservices are running. So this is my coffee bar front end. It's all in blue. These are coffee bar front end issues. Okay. Then down here, I've got a Lambda issue. My Lambda function is used to purchase pastries and rolls and things like that. Okay. So the different colors represent the different aspects of my microservices.
Okay.
Okay. And really what I'm looking for are the ones with the red line up. And I want the lowest one with the red line, because that will then tell me what the error was. It should tell me what the error was. Again, here I have a situation of no water.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Now, question usually gets asked in this class is, gee, John, this was all great. This is all powerful stuff. How do I set it up? And I would encourage you to perhaps think about joining us for our Observability Fundamentals Administration class. Because in the Observability Fundamentals Administration class, we show you how to set up this tracing and how to set up this stuff in your various applications. So that's where we show you and connect that part of it. This class is really more for an analyst of how do I analyze this, not how do I set this stuff up. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? All right. So we did lab 5. We did lab 6. All right. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to start getting you guys ready for your examination. Okay. So I assume that you want to take the examination. There's one slide, by the way, that's missing from here. If you were with us earlier this week, you know that we are running a promotion. If you take and pass the certification exam, we will send you a $15 Uber Eats voucher. So I will put the link in there. There's a form that you can fill out and you can send to us, and we will look up and verify that you passed your certification. And within about 48 hours, we'll send you a $15 Uber Eats voucher. Now, how do you take the exam? Okay. Yep. I'll show you. Matthias, that's a great question. I'll show you that question. So how do I get into the exam? Well, the first thing I need you to do is I need you to go into our Sumo Logic training environment that you're all in. And I need you to log out, because we don't want you to take the test as training analyst number 6403, whatever, at sumologic.com. We want you to take it with your name. So how you log out is, if your navigation panel here is closed, like mine is, you just click anywhere it says Sumo Logic or on the hamburger menu. And then down here at the bottom, you'll see your account. And if you click on it, you'll see as a last option is to sign out. So I want you all to sign out of our Sumo Logic environment, okay? Then I want you to go to your company's Sumo Logic environment. So go to your company's Sumo Logic environment, and I want you to log in with your credentials. So do this from your company's environment, okay? And I don't care if you're in the continuous intelligence platform or wherever you are, it doesn't make any difference. Actually, I'd prefer that you were in this continuous intelligence platform. But you should see down here on the lower left-hand corner, again, if it's not open, open it up, your name. Okay. Then to take the certification exam, if you click on the house, you click on the certification, you click on Get Certified, this should take you into our learning management system. Now, earlier, when you were logged in as a training account, you only had 3 of these boxes. Now there are 5 of these boxes. Here is where our self-paced courses are. Also, it's where we keep our passwords. So you don't have to email me. All you've got to do is look here and you can see the password. We keep that up to date. So if you want to focus on the Kubernetes course, you can go in here and do the Kubernetes course. We also have a Kubernetes basic course if you're interested, a little bit of background about Kubernetes. So you can go in here and take these classes. By the way, these classes are free. That's my favorite price. I live in New Hampshire because we have no income tax. We have no sales tax. State motto is live free or die. Okay. Don't worry, we get you on property tax, so it's not the great thing it seems to be. Also in here under learn a new skill, here's where all of our micro lessons are. So if you want to learn how to install Kubernetes or some basic administration things or create a chain rule or a match rule or whatever rule, we've got little micro lessons for that you can take advantage of. These are free. I like that stuff, okay? Recorded live training, I showed you that earlier, right? We have our recordings out here for our courses. We have our lab guides. We have all of our slides that you can access. But obviously what we want to focus on today and right now is to get certified. We want to take the certification exam. So if you would, click on Get Certified and come in here with me. The first thing I want to show you before we get into the actual Kubernetes exam is up here in the upper right-hand corner is your profile. And if I go into my profile, you can add your picture if you want to. You don't have to. If you want to, you can. And then here's all your information. We get this information from your Sumo Logic environment. So when you log into our LMS and you click on those buttons, we automatically pick that stuff up. Now, Here it shows you all of the exams that you have, and any current exam that you have, you can view its certificate, print it out, put it on your I love me wall, whatever you want to do. You can also click on this and it will automatically add that certification to your LinkedIn profile. Certifications area. It's not going to create a new post or anything. So it's going to add it to your LinkedIn certification area. So here is where you can see what exams you took and which exams you've passed and all of that good stuff. Okay. All right. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here where the done button is, and I'm going to go back to our exam. The reason I point this out is significant. I'll get to it in just a little bit. Okay. Now, here in our exams, you can filter by language. You can filter by whatever type of course. I can filter by Kubernetes. There it is. There's our new Kubernetes exam. Okay. Or again, if you're not filtering, there it is right there. Okay. When you click on this exam, you get to register. It's absolutely free. You click on the registration button, boom, you're registered. Piece of cake. Then it starts to guide you through the exam. So here's some before you start directions. So I click on the before you start directions. I can see that this exam consists of 30 questions. You're going to have 60 minutes to complete it. Passing score is 70%. The questions are going to be fill in the blanks, matching text, drag and drop, that sort of thing. Again, this exam is open book. You can also ask me if you get stuck on a question. You can look at the slides, look at the documentation, anything that you need. We want you to pass. That is our goal. When I click next, it's going to take me to the exam. So here is the exam. I've got an hour to complete it, or 16 minutes. Got 30 questions. Here's my first attempt. When you are ready to start, and please don't start, just bear with me a second. So here is a summary listing of all the questions I'm going to get. And then I've got them one at a time. So it says, match the following app to its description. So the Kubernetes app provides information about my worker nodes, right? We remember that from class. The control plane finds information about my control plane node, right? So I'm going to go ahead and click next. That question's answered. Probably notice my timer is timing down and stuff like that. What query did we use to bring all the Kubernetes related data to the training data? That was source category equals */cubes. Basically that one right there. Okay. Now, I'm just going to answer these two questions. By the way, this red indicates that there's an abnormality. That's what the red indicates. I'll answer these three questions. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of here. Now, obviously, if I end my exam right now, I'm going to fail. I've only answered 3 questions. There's no way I got a 7. But I want to show you something, and there's a reason why I'm doing this. So I'm going to go ahead and click Submit All Answers. And it says, are you sure you want to continue the course? Or no, I'm going to say Submit all my answers. What happens when you complete your exam is on the left here, it will tell you what questions you got right. It will also tell you what questions you got wrong. But here's the reason why I show you this. When you take the exam and you pass it, and you're very proud, and I'm very happy for you, do not forget to click the Submit Results button. Because when you click the Submit Results button, it's going to add it to your profile up here. If you don't click the Submit Results button, the exam did not happen. It will not be in your transcript. So please, 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 if you pass it, hit the Submit Results, go ahead and do it. If for some reason you fail the exam, you can take it again immediately. You can take it again whenever you want to. You don't necessarily need me here to take it again if you want, but you can take it again and take it as many times as you want. Once you pass, if you want to get a higher score, you've got to wait 30 days before you can take it again to try for that higher score. My opinion, I'm sure there's a lot of things in your life, a lot of priorities. This is just one. So I would take the pass and I would forget about this and move on and take your newfound knowledge and have a good time. I wouldn't worry about trying to raise your score. That's me. So hopefully that gives you an idea of how to get in here and to take the exam and all that sort of thing. What questions have you? All right, then, let me turn on my camera one last time and to thank you for attending and being with us today. I hope you learned lots of good things. Hope it became very valuable for you. Good luck on the exam. I will be here. I will stop the recording. I will stop my audio and video commentary, and you guys can take the exam. So Anything we can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Otherwise, hope you have a great day. Hope you stay cool and be safe. Thank you very much for joining us.